Hello, Abigail here with the astrology and tarot for the new moon in Capricorn. This new moon is on January 18th at 1:51 p.m. Central Time. And this is a really intense one. I do think a lot of really lovely things are going to come out of it. We do have a lot of Martian energy. Obviously, Mars is exalted in this sign of Capricorn. We also have the kind of aftermath of all of these Mars conjunctions. The final Mars conjunction happens a little bit earlier in the day and is separating by the time we get to this moon, and by separating by not that many astrological minutes. And so there's a lot of bang to this energy. We're not quite as wrapped up in that Jupiter opposition we've been experiencing, but we are still in that kind of push and pull between the function of Jupiter and the function of everything that's been in opposition. And so there is this back and forth, and remembering that, thankfully the opposition is with a benefic. A lot of people, I think, have been asking, you know, why is everything so rough with Jupiter in in an exalted position? But remember, benefics also temper things, so it could be a lot more intense. And I've seen other astrologers kind of mentioning this. So just be aware. Anyways, into kind of like the anatomy of this new moon, we have the ruler at the late degrees of Pisces in a sextile with this moon. This is also the last moon where we're going to be having aspects to Neptune or Saturn in Pisces. This is our final goodbye. We've kind of had a series of goodbyes as we hit each, the square, the trine, and now we have the sextile. And then when they go into Aquarius, there's no interconnection because they're right next to each other, and then they will have been moved into Aries by then. But the next time we hit like another sextile, which would be the next aspect. So yeah, this is an interesting kind of meeting of the roads where beginnings and endings are meeting. It is a new moon where we start stuff, but also it is the finalizing of something. Also, not the last non-eclipse lunation, but it is the last one that's not adjacent. And it is the last new moon before we have the new moon eclipse in Aquarius, which is going to be the first of that cycle. It's going to be a pretty heavy hitter. It's also Saturn ruled. And so this just feels like we're on the edge of a precipice. It feels like we're right on the edge of something. Also, it's at 28 degrees, not quite 29, but it is getting to that point in the degree kind of cycle where you start to feel the edge coming up. And so know that this is kind of a breathless new moon. It's also an opportunity to really hang on to what you have learned and what you believe in and the direction you want to go moving forward. Obviously, understanding that we're inviting the universe in to help us navigate that and make choices. But as far as like kind of like standing on your beliefs and being true to yourself, this is a great moment for that, while also inviting in and welcoming in the ruler, Saturn, as this guide to what our limitations are and what we can and cannot do, and the systems that we are under, and how we need to be kind of working in and amongst it while resisting it, which we have Mars and Mercury in their conjunction 2 degrees away. And so there is a lot of fluency around rage and around expression and around kind of understanding fully the weight of the world and how we are having to deal with it and negotiate with it and sit with it. Is this a comfy new moon? No. It's also a Saturn new moon. So it's like, yeah, it's also, a detriment moon, the only detriment moon that we have. And so it is an opportunity and a time to be creative, and to also, when I work with detriment planets and with, objects in detriment position, it's important to recognize that you can't really work with them in the typical way. You have to develop a unique take with them. You can't just be like, it's a moon, we're going to do moon things. The moon in detriment isn't as feely and has more resistance to outside pressure and is able to endure a bit more. Can it become unhealthy because of how much it can endure? Yes. If you have a Capricorn moon, I encourage you not to endure discomfort just because you can. Endure discomfort because you have a goal that you're headed towards, but not as a long-term solution. You too deserve comfort and ease, even with that spicy placement. So this is a fighting moon. This is a moon who resists This is a moon who is getting access to, Mercury and Mars. And I will say they are both combust because they're 2 degrees away. Mercury and Mars are combust. So there is a bit of a lack of visibility. And also, we're sextiling Neptune. So this moon is a huge exercise in trust. What you are desiring, what you are manifesting, it is going to feel impossible under this moon. It's not impossible, but the looking into the future and seeing what you have now, it's going to be like, I have no idea how we're getting from point A to point B. um, I have the desire, I have the skill sets, but the obstacles just seem like so much. Also, we're dealing with all of this kind of past energy. All of the planets at this point have retrograded back into all the outer planets, have retrograded back into degrees we've already been at. And so we're also in this energy of like, is it going to change? Is my work going to pay off? I've put so much into this. When am I going to start to see a return? And this moon is a promise that that is going to happen, that you are going to get what you deserve, but you do have to hang on. And specifically, I think we have to hang on until the eclipses are over. So into into Pisces season. Um, but really, some of us are being asked to kind of take a hard left and do something different. But I think the majority of us are being asked to trust and to be consistent in the work that we are doing, believing that what we have dreamed is valid and legitimate. And yeah, there are going to be tweaks and things that we are going to need to shift and change, especially with the Mars Mercury conjunction. Um, like taking what we know and what we've learned and what we have at our disposal and then using it for action, that is going to be helpful. And Mercury is great at problem solving, so we are going to be asked to problem solve and to create our way through this. But know that the work you put in does have value and that it does have merit. We're just at a very tricky time in the astrology when there is a lot of kind of older past energy that we are having to finish out and finalize. And it does feel like we're being held back and repressed and kept from stuff that we felt was attainable by this point. So I encourage you to trust. I know it's not easy. Also, it is important to note if you haven't watched my video of this week, there is so much astrology that has happened prior to this. So many Uranus trines, and we're going to get to the Uranus trine in this one because it is just by a degree. It also means that, Mars and Mercury are also in their Uranus trine. And so, or approaching the perfection of that. They're not quite there yet. The Uranus trine will perfect by the end of the day, and I'm pretty sure the Mars one does on Monday. But we also have this trine with Uranus that is retrograde and is at 27 degrees. We've already been here. Uranus, because it has a 7-year cycle, tends to sit at a degree for a fairly long period of time. And so we're all just in this energy of really recognizing where in the kind of the pursuance of progress things have gotten off the rails. Not having protections for things like AI, not having legislation for how certain technologies are used. We're seeing this with the rise of things like CSAM and revenge porn being created out of AI, whatever they're called, generative AI. We're seeing this in kind of stark relief in this moment. We're seeing the aggressiveness of what happens when you do not plan with your innovation, when you start things without any type of restriction or process. If you kind of go against the rules of certain things, and so it does feel very hard, and I want to emphasize that. But I do think there are, with this Uranus trine, there's also the possibility to change those things. There's the possibility to recognize that things can be different and to refuse the naysayers and the apathy and the it's gone too far, we can't do anything, and be like, no, we can start now to get on board with stuff. If you're finding yourself, you've kind of had your head in the sand or you've been kind of resistant to really speaking out about stuff, this is the time. You've got, besides, Venus, which isn't that far away. That's just over in Aquarius, a few degrees. If you really think about this, and Venus is also still under the rays and also getting closer and closer to its conjunction with Pluto, which is going to be fun for relationships. um, but it is a moment where we get to say enough is enough. And we get to start putting in motion our plans and the things that we want to start to claim back our power, especially with the sextile with Saturn. It's really helpful and conversational. It's also in a place we've already been. So these are topics we need to discuss that we have a language around. We understand some of what has happened because we're like, oh, we've been here before. Same with that sextile with Neptune hanging out at 29 degrees until the end of this month when it will officially go into Aries. There are hopes and dreams and things. We are on the edge of a cliff where things are going to change, where we can turn the tide of something, but you have to believe even when it seems hopeless, even when it looks like that the deck is stacked. And in this moon, the deck does feel stacked. I will say, because of the tradition of astrology and what we know about it, some really good and beautiful stuff, some really powerful stuff is going to come out of this astrology. It is just really hard to endure this much energy. And especially when you're dealing with it personally, and then there's what's happening in the world in the mundane portion of things. Um, it is a lot, and it does feel like too much. And there's a lot of overwhelm held in these oppositions with Jupiter and in the conjunctions and the trines with Uranus that are going to be present this week. So there is hope. You just have to believe it's there even when it's not apparent, which seems deeply unfair, I know. And how to work best with this moment is to manifest, is to believe, is to get small functional ways to move forward. This is also the new moon that we are preparing for the eclipses in. So you need to start preparing yourself for the change you have been calling in. And if you have been resisting something or fighting for something that is not meant for you, let go of it now because the eclipses are going to sweep it away. And I will tell you this as someone who has done this before and kind of recently. If you hold on to the thing that the eclipses are calling away from you or calling you towards something else to leave something behind, you will eventually lose it anyways. That's just how it works. And there is genuinely something better for you on the other side, even if it doesn't feel like that. And this is the new moon to let go of those things. We will have that Leo full moon to fully release into, but this is the new moon where we start to peel our little fingers off and be like, I wonder what would happen if I stopped trying to control the thing or trying to keep the thing and seeing if the thing can actually stay on its own. And sometimes it can. Sometimes we learn a beautiful lesson of like not everything leaves when we release control over it. But then also I think for some of us, some stuff has to go and it's on its way out and you already know it. And so that the desire to hold it close is there. And I encourage you in this moment to kind of hand it back to the universe and be like, hey, I would really love for this to work. I would really love for this collaboration, this relationship, this this project to work out. But if it doesn't, I trust that there's something better. There's something I'm moving towards that is better for me, that is more aligned, that is more long lasting, especially with this being a Saturn moment. Um, you know, so trust and believe, and also release. I know it's a new moon, but release, release, release. And that Leo moon will be our kind of final opportunity. It will feel very eclipsy. I can already feel the eclipse energy building. It will feel, and I've said this for a couple of weeks. It will feel very eclipsy. I also will tell you this: fixed sign eclipses always just feel longer and bigger and harder. But that full moon in Leo will be able to fully release, but you have to kind of start that process. And this is the perfect time with Mars conjunct Mercury of getting clarity and understanding on certain things. Even with the combust the moon where it's a bit obscured, it's a moment when you kind of have to trust your guts and your instinct, and recognize that no, you don't know everything and you're not going to know everything. So I think that's important. All right, let's look at the cards for this moment in time. What do we have? I love it when it backs me up. Not necessarily in this way, but I'll take it. Affirmed. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I find a lot of times when I draw tarot for new and full moons, I get almost exact aspects to stuff. Yep. 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 All right, folks. Starting off, we have the Tower. Not a huge shock, not a big surprise to me or anyone. This This is a moon that is helping us dismantle in order to rebuild. It is a moon that is preparing us for what is to come, is saying these, it's going to poke at things that are not stable. It is going to poke at beliefs and ideals and structures that are not rooted in something stable and secure. If you have a belief that you're kind of just holding on to because it's from your childhood or because you learned it from a partner or from someone else, that will crumble. If you have not done investigation into your magical practice, if you've kind of been writing off of, someone else's teaching because you're kind of in the in between student and teacher, now is the time to become the teacher. You cannot live off of someone else's energetic beliefs. Now you can gain support from them, you can learn, you can understand, but you cannot live off of them. Um, and I love this because it's like, of course, we have the moon. You know, this is about, essentially, at the end of the day, this is about the internal world. Yes, we're experiencing a lot of external things, but this is about an internal experience and dialogue about who you are and what you need. And yes, the moon can obscure things. We've got Mars and Mercury in kind of a tricky position, makes things a bit hazy. We also have, that sextile to Neptune and Saturn. And while that is a very helpful supportive situation, Neptune still makes things, the edges very blurry. And so with the moon, we have to trust what we know and what we feel rather than what we can see and what we can touch. This moon is an exercise in intuitive trust. This moon is a moment where we have to believe that something is possible even when it seems impossible. And that is what detriment planets are for. Detriment planets, and I will say this until I am blue in the face, detriment planets are fighting planets. If you have a detriment placement, you are a fighter in some shape and form. I have a detriment Venus. I will always fight for relationships, other people's relationships, my relationships. Um, Also, when the fighting is done, I'm out. When the relationship, when the situation is no longer stable, when the connection is no longer there, I'm done. But I will fight till the very end, unfortunately. If you have a detriment Mars, similar ideas with, you will resist the impetus of that situation. It can be both a blessing and a curse. Same with, like I said, with the detriment moon, you're an incredibly stalwart and just intense emotional person who is capable of holding so much, but you don't push yourself. Same with Venus. The downside of that is you can stay too long. You can advocate for too long. A detriment Mars has kind of a similar thing where it can, just continue to plod step by step instead of taking the leap that Mars is good at. The Venus tends to like to move to where it is most comfortable. A detriment Venus will stay where it is uncomfortable, which can be a gift and can also be a curse. Same with Jupiter and Saturn. So this moon is a moment to resist, to have resilience emotionally, to endure and understand this so that we can move forward more clearly. And we have help for that. We have the sextile with Saturn, we have sextile with Neptune, we have the trine with Uranus. There is new and fabulous energy headed our way. However, Nine of Swords, we do not have clarity. It is very terrifying to sit on the edge of a cliff and not know if you're going to land on your feet, not know if you are going to end up whole at the bottom or the other side, or if you're going to be smashed into pieces. And so I want to validate the fear that is going to rise up out of this moon, because this, a lot of energy, folks. But you need to stay true to your desires and your beliefs and the path that you've set out for yourself. And by true, I don't mean, oh, I have to follow exactly how I thought this was going to happen, but true to the internal impetus and desire that you have for the things that you are seeking. Like I always say, for someone who, especially if you have something in past life astrology called a skip step, where you feel like you are in a past life cycle where you're having to kind of redo stuff over and over again, I always encourage, instead of looking at like exact physical results, to focus on the emotional results, to release the need for a specific material outcome, but to be like, hey, what I truly want at the end of this road, or at the attainment of this desire, is X, Y, and Z. I want joy and comfort and community, fulfillment, care. I want to feel safe and secure financially and emotionally. Um, I want to experience freedom and freedom from fear and freedom from anxiety. So I encourage you when you manifest, because we don't get a lot of visibility. We just know that something new is coming and it's right over the horizon, and something really hard is being faced right now. To manifest how you want to feel at the end of this journey, because we don't know how it's going to work out. And I think a lot of you who are watching this are in lifetimes where you're never going to know how it works out. It's not the path you've been given. The path you've been given is very shifting and changing, and you have a lot of karmic choices that are going to adjust outcomes. And so, the truest thing that you can connect to is how you want to feel when you get something rather than what you get. And so, in this moment, and it's just something I will be very preachy about. Um, and so, in this moment, oh, that's interesting. So I've gotten this guy for a second. Ooh, finish my thought before I read these. So in this moment, you really do need to connect to what your internal desires are, what you want to feel when you have come through all of this, what you want to have when it comes to the emotional buffet of what you desire. And I'm not saying that the material stuff isn't good and delicious, but the emotional, because you can get a really materially positive thing and it can really F you up, right? You can like manifest a new job with a better salary, but maybe the people there suck. You can manifest getting a house, but then maybe the HOA is from hell, you know. So manifesting rather than the attainment of that thing, manifesting how you want to feel. And of course, these material things are a part of how we want to feel. It's just releasing the need to have control over exactly how it turns out allows the universe to really play to your strengths a lot more. Anyways, what I pulled that I was like, oh ho. So I saw this and I wasn't shocked, because this is like anytime I get this card near eclipse season, I'm like, oh, the eclipses are coming. Buckle up, batten down the hatches, folks. This goes back to what I said about needing to really connect and release, connect to ourselves and release outcomes and release things that are holding us down, and being like, hey, if eclipse season shakes this baby loose, I'm okay with that, because I know that I'm going to get something even better on the other side. And that's very much the eclipse energy. And then we have the King of Wands, self advocation, baby, believing in that internal fire, knowing that you deserve what you desire and the dreams that you have, and that they are coming, and that your passions are true and connected. Um, but yeah, we just have to trust. And it doesn't seem like it's possible, but the King of Wands knows that it is possible and believes in its possibility and steps out in faith on the possibility of its desires. And last but not least, we have the Lovers. Us becoming more aligned, more true, more connected to ourselves is going to bring in more um, elevated and stable and beautiful relationships, whether it be friends, whether it be found family, whether it be a reconnection with our own family or a deeper relationship with them, whether it be romantic partners. This Capricorn new moon and our ability to be brave during it is going to open up and unlock a wealth of relational connection and care. It's going to bring us new people and experiences. And so, in the midst of what is incredibly tense and some tricky astrology, because there's a lot of really benefic and technically good astrological stuff happening recently. Good and a lot are not always not always the same thing. And while I do absolutely believe some really beautiful and good things are going to come out of this, I also recognize that we have to live through it and we have to exist through it. And so hold on to this hope of these things that are coming towards you that are going to be good, knowing that eclipse season is coming and it is going to be a lot, knowing that it takes time for things to shift, but believing that you deserve to see the fruits of your labor, that your dreams deserve to be seen, and that you deserve to get the things that you have asked for and the things that you've been working towards. That's a very Saturnian thing. It's Saturn moon. You deserve to have that connection and that payback for the labor you have done. And I don't believe Saturn's going to cheap out on you. I do think Saturn might wait until, it gets into Aries to start doling out the goods because it is finishing out a cycle. But hold true to yourself and your beliefs and know that you have a lot of support, both seen and unseen, and to lean on that in these times. Anyways, my loves, this is the end of the video. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy my work. You can always find me over on IG and you can book a reading with me. I'm always thrilled when I get to read for you all. Anyways, I hope you have a blessed new moon in Capricorn, and I will see you later.